Why do you think representation matters?
Representation matters because it shows you that you exist and you are appreciated.
Representation matters. Of course, it does. And this initiative brings tons of hope. We are venting and trying to find solutions that bring justice and fairness for all of us. The only way we can see change is by showing something different.
As artists, we're called to share our gifts with everyone in the community, everyone. And in order for everyone to feel welcome, they need to be represented by people that look like them on the stage. Plain and simple, if they don't, they won't feel like they belong, and they just won't come.
Our communities are so diverse. Our children need to be able to look up at the stage and the screen and see people who look like them doing things they never thought possible. These conversations, they're hard, and opera is hard too. The stories have been told the same way for so many years.
All too often, I just find myself wanting to be included for my artistry and hard work and acting and singing ability, and not just be exoticized for the color of my skin.
We are not in an isolationist society, thank God. That is not what we want. So what we see on stage or on a canvas or in a sculpture or on television or in dance should reflect what is going on in our own community. And the same, of course, holds true for opera. We really need to look at the fact that our culture is made up of many peoples, many genders, many preferences, many ages, many styles, many types. And that, to me, is why representation matters.
We are an immigrant country. If we cannot reflect the diversity of our communities in our art forms, then we're not going forward, because then what we are saying does not have the truth of the moment that we are living in. We all have a different flavor to bring to the art form. We all have a story to tell.
Representation matters because without it, we are absolutely ignorant to the voices that are often not heard within our community. It's imperative to know what those voices want, whether it be the African American community, the Asian community, the LGBTQ community. It's important for us to know what these communities like, what these communities want, what struggles, what challenges do these communities face.
Each one of us, each human being, has been placed on this earth with the tools and the talents to contribute to the whole of humanity. Everyone has something to give. The color of a person's skin, their religious beliefs, the person they choose to live life with. None of that has any bearing with the ability of a person to contribute. But all of it completes the picture of our community.
I know representation matters because it simply says you're here, you matter. Your story counts. The history of you has dignity and it should be shown. Representation matters because if I don't see it, how can I believe it?
Full representation is the only way to have a rich, thriving, beautiful, innovative, equitable, and successful industry. Representation matters because it makes our art better and it allows our industry to fulfill its potential and its stated missions. Representation matters because it is violent and oppressive to marginalized communities to refuse to represent them, especially so when we profit from their ideas and cultures and tokenize them on our stages instead of filling our organizations with Black, Indigenous, and people of color from the top down.
When I think of contemporary American opera, I think of opera that is representative of our population, one in which all of our stories are told and all of the people on stage reflect the same diversity that our audience should have.
The arts industry should strive to reflect the world as it truly is. The world is a vast place of many colors and many identities. We should strive to create spaces where all of our differences are celebrated, ethnic differences, identity differences, because we all have a story to tell.
It brings a sense of worth back to us. And everyone should feel that way. Everyone should feel worthy to be existing and to be seen, and it feels very nice.
The arts inspire. So we need to make sure that we really take on the charge of inspiring all of those who would not otherwise get that opportunity.
Welcome to our next installment of Representation Matters. I'm your host, Chevalier Lovett, and I proudly serve as a board member for Opera Orlando. You just saw some of our wonderful company members and artists share why representation matters to them, and we are excited to share more from other past and present Opera Orlando artists, staff members, board members, and volunteers as we explore all facets of representation. The question we pose for this episode is, how does representation in the arts affect and shape the community around us? And to help us answer that question, I had the opportunity to speak with Orange County Mayor Jerry L. Demings about the beautiful and growing diversity we have here in Orlando and throughout the county, and how we can give a greater voice and uplift these groups in the arts in particular and beyond. I enjoyed getting to hear more of Mayor Demings' personal story and feelings around representation, and I am excited to share his insights with you. Mayor Demings, thank you so much for joining us today. And let me say how grateful Opera Orlando and the arts community as a whole are for the support we receive from the county.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be able to support our arts community, and we have a lot planned. And, I believe that we have a new talent, new ideas, and just how to harness that and embrace that to make our community the best that it could be is something that I want to be a part of.
Orange County is truly a melting pot and becoming more and more of an international community. So as mayor of Orange County, what have been your impressions of the importance of diversity and inclusion, and how has the county embraced its ever-growing diverse populace?
Well, I am originally from Orange County. I was born and raised here. So since I was born in the 50s, I've seen Orange County really change, and the complexion of Orange County change over time. And much of what has occurred, I'm really excited about. With the change in demographics that we have here, I believe that the residents of Orange County want to see representation that is reflective of that broad diversity. So for me, I love the multicultural events that I'm able to attend and support, from the food to the pageantry to the people, the culture, the dance. And as it relates to the arts, when we do that, I think we're all so much better informed about sharing and understanding that we are really a kaleidoscope of people that have come together to make us as strong and as vibrant as we possibly can be.
Well, I'm so grateful that you said you're a product of Orange County. So am I. I do have to say, I did graduate from Winter Park High School. Go Wildcats. But Jones High School, go Tigers. We still bleed the orange, right?
Absolutely. I'm a proud product of Orange County, a graduate out of Jones High School. It's not lost on me because of, being a African American, first Black, to do many of the things that I've been involved in this community, that somehow we have to make sure that we bring some others along. Within less than 2 years now, we appointed the first African American county administrator. We appointed the first Hispanic corrections chief. We appointed the first woman who happens to be also Hispanic to head up our health services department. We have had the opportunity to make appointments to our arts and cultural affairs, various bodies, to make certain that we have the broad diversity. And one of the things that we did as I transitioned into becoming the mayor, we had a transition team that was a very diverse group of people from the community co-chaired by one of the former mayors, the first woman to be mayor of Orange County, Linda Chapin, co-chaired with Harold Mills. And they made various recommendations about improving our county. And when we talked about arts and cultural affairs types of issues, we recognized that there were some deficits there. And so one of the things that we created here in Orange County is something called the MLK Initiative after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it's a year-round initiative. It's not something that we will focus on just during the month of January or February each year. We will do it year-round to embody those principles that Dr. King talked about of nonviolence. We have 4 focus areas. One is on education and literacy for our community, community outreach and engagement, diversity and inclusion, and marketing and public relations. And so this volunteer group of 30 individuals representing the broad array of people who live here will help make certain that the public policy that we embrace is truly inclusive.
Orange County is truly a melting pot and becoming more and more of an international community. As mayor of Orange County, what have been your impressions of the importance of diversity and inclusion, and how has the county embraced that?
We cannot be a united county. We cannot have a united front if we don't recognize that we have some systemic racism issues as a society that are long overdue in terms of being addressed in this community. So I want to make certain that we are bridging gaps, that as a leader in this community, my dialogue has to be one that unifies us, not divides us. Minorities in our community, people of color, certainly they have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And so as we begin to try to reignite our economy here and get things back going, it's going to be really important that we have a definitive plan of action to make sure that the decisions that are being made by those who are in high places have the right sensitivities. We want to make certain that these boards, as the recent articles pointed out, our boards are not nearly diverse enough, and that's a missed opportunity for us as a community. So I believe that some people fear of the change when we embrace diversity. What they hear when we talk about that is that whatever privileges that they've had, perhaps they will no longer have them. It means that someone else will have the advantage and not them. Really what it means is that no, you will be able to enjoy just the things that you had, but you will be able to better, I think, experience the breadth of what living is all about when other people are able to enjoy what you've enjoyed for so long. Sure. And so we have to have that kind of, I think, dynamic thinking in the environment that we're in today. So I want to make certain that as we transition the leadership of our community, we are able to transition to people who have the passion, who are willing to get into the arena and fight for these things that sometimes I've tried to bring about the change from inside organizations as opposed to being outside. We have to do it both ways. We have to be part of the organizations, and then sometimes we need advocacy groups who can stir the pot when they need to do so.
Yes, sir. So there's a couple things I want to touch on, Mr. Mayor. First of all, no one said you were going to come on here and preach today. So I am so grateful for the word and for the preaching that you are doing, sir. Our Representation Matters series actually launched with Black artists, Black stories, uplifting the experiences of individuals who are Black in the arts. I am so grateful that you touched on kind of some systemic issues. Also, you said you're the first Black representation in many different seats. How do you still intend to use that platform to bring other Black stories alive?
Well, by giving access to the public sector, where we have dollars. We want to make certain that we're spending dollars in communities of color to be able to level this playing field where we have the right sensitivity through our neighborhood centers for families where we have the right arts and cultural programs there for our children to be there. Sometimes it's all about opportunity. If given the opportunity, we know that we can shine. And so we are here to try to create opportunities. And so, yes, I'm passionate about what I do, and I know that you're passionate about that as well. And so if nothing else, we can make certain that we're included in the conversation from those in our Head Start programs. Orange County funds a number of Head Start programs here and runs Head Start programs. So from children who are pre-K right up through high school, we get to, and college, I would say in our universities, we have the opportunity to network and to make certain that we're touching a lot of different lives. I have 3 adult sons who live in this community. I have 5 grandchildren, 4 granddaughters, and 1 grandson. All of my granddaughters are dancers in the performing arts. They take ballet. I have a daughter-in-law who owns a dance studio here. And what I see are some tangible benefits from my grandchildren being involved in the arts. So I know that the arts is a way to improve academic performance in our school districts. And to me, education can be the great leveler in many ways for people of color to be able to get access, to be better educated, to be better spoken, to be more well-rounded, culturally diverse. It just means the world to them. And so as I see my grandchildren now, who range in age from 5 to 21, I'm excited about the future for them.
And looking to the future with the moment that we're in now, how do you think the arts can help our community to continue to come together and develop greater harmony and understanding around diversity and inclusion?
It would be important that they see true role models. And so this weekend, this past weekend, I had the opportunity to view many of the films in which Chadwick Boseman played some notable figures in America, from Thurgood Marshall to Jackie Robinson to James Brown. You know, and I think about that. And to being, you know, in Black Panther itself. Well, for many of our young people, I think that creates the reality that they too can do that. They too can be part of producing movies. And so we want to make that their reality. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with the Disney Dreamers and Doers program, in which Steve Harvey and others have brought Black children and other minority children from around the country together and exposed them to really the arts and entertainment, from those who are on stage to those who are behind stage, who can make very good money as producers and doing the other things. But if you are never exposed to that in your neighborhood, you don't even have the reality that there you can make a lot of money and do well doing that. So it's about, I think, this convergence of opportunity and exposure coming together that we are trying to make sure that we accentuate in our community. We can leverage that through here within Orange County. We're fortunate we have Orange TV. We have our own television station that we can help to promote different arts events. And then we have things like Fusion Fest that we are putting on Front Street. We have the Mayor's Jazz in the Park event, where we are doing annually in the spring, where we're trying to expose some of our emerging artists to others in our community, to help get them exposure, to involving them in the various activities that we're involved in. And then, of course, you all know Terry Olson. Terry is our guy. And Terry is just a phenomenal individual who has relationships throughout the entire community. And so we try to make certain that we have those sensitivities.
So to end, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask, why do you think representation matters specifically to you? What does that phrase mean to you?
I'm fortunate, I'm blessed because I was able to be exposed to some great role models within this community. I have had the privilege of meeting some of the icons from the civil rights movement, from people like Julian Bond, Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson, to John Lewis, to Rosa Parks, and others who were at the national level. Even some entertainers like Harry Belafonte, who has been a civil rights activist for many years, and Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis and others who were on the front line early, to Sidney Poitier and others who were in the entertainment industry. I've had the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with them. And so if this little poor black boy from West Orlando could have been exposed to them, who gave me, I think, the encouragement, gave me, created the spark, and that ultimately developed into the passion that I have to serve, be of service to others. I know that this is what can happen to some other young boy, girl as well. And so I believe that representation really will serve as that catalyst to be able to inspire others to be all that they can be in life. And so without representation, I don't believe that we have the opportunity to reach our full potential in life. And so we must encourage and demand representation at all levels of government and within all segments of our community.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This poor little black boy from Winter Park really appreciates and thanks you for your time and your very impassioned interview about why representation matters. Before we end our time, you spoke of Chadwick. We kind of did the Wakanda Forever. Do you mind if we do that one more time just to represent him? Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. A huge thank you to Mayor Demings for taking the time to share his thoughts with us. In the arts and opera in particular, it takes a village. And we are honored to have leaders like Mayor Demings supporting what is already a vibrant art scene in Orlando and throughout Orange County. A huge amount of credit can be given to United Arts of Central Florida for building this robust community. For 30 plus years, they have been the one-stop shop of support for the arts, sciences, and history in Lake, Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. They invest more than $4.9 million annually into more than 60 arts, science, and history cultural providers through grants, collaborative fundraising, and contract service opportunities. Opera Orlando has truly appreciated their support over the past 5 seasons, and it was a privilege for me to sit down with Rafael Torres, Manager of Arts and Grants Education at United Arts, to talk about how the arts landscape in Central Florida continues to evolve and how United Arts is being more intentional as it looks at their support of diversity and inclusion across all aspects of their work. Rafael, thank you so much for joining us today. Opera Orlando is so grateful for the ongoing support of United Arts of Central Florida.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's I have a very lucky job and to support the arts and folks like Opera Orlando.
Central Florida is truly a melting pot and becoming more and more of an intentional community. So as a leader with United Arts of Central Florida, what have your impressions of the importance of diversity and inclusion, and how has the organization embraced its ever-growing diverse populace?
United Arts has been around for a while, since 1989. And, recently had a Cuban executive director from Maria. And she, instituted when she came in certain diversity initiatives at the time. So this was like 8 or 9, a couple of years ago, starting things like the diversity grant, which we currently have. We also have task forces that are diverse minded. So we have one for the African American community and one for the called the Hispanic Task Force. We're doing stuff, but we can do better and we can do more.
I am so glad you said that. You're doing a lot. United Arts does do a lot. Personally, how do you show up to do better?
How do I show up to do better? I come in with open ears and open eyes, and and I'm open to learning. And I think that's a good humble place to be. Not expecting to know everything. I'm just so a Puerto Rican that grew up in New York, as we call us New Yorkers, and I have my own perspectives, coming into all of this stuff. So I have my own kind of thing, and it's just learning more things about the indigenous communities, the Black communities, and there's a lot of things that people of color may not know about. So I think that these are all very important things.
That's beautiful,
I
Rafael.
hope that answered your question.
No, you totally answered the question. It's a lot to unpack there as well. You spoke about your experience and your lens as a person of color, especially someone who's leading a lot of initiatives in the arts in Central Florida. And so thank you for that. So United Arts serves a very diverse populace within science, arts, and cultural groups. In many ways, these groups are a reflection of our community. So have you seen diversity play a part in these different groups within the Central Florida arts scene?
As a person who sits, within United Arts, and I see the grants programming that comes out, yes, I see that there's different initiatives in connecting with the folks out there, that's, that runs the gambit from the classical stuff to things that are culturally relevant to certain ethnicities. But again, arriving with that other kind of thing that's been on my mind lately, which is we could do better and we could do more to connect with these communities. There's a little statistic that blows my mind that I hear from the Orange County public school system, which is the racial makeup of their kids. So there's it's 43% Latinx. I like to say Latinx. 25% is white, 24% is Black, and 5% is Asian. So, it's an interesting mixed bag there. But if you think about what's offered, I think that there's certain offerings to these folks, but but we just can't brush over the fact that a lot of these programs really go towards that 25%. Mm-hmm. So I would just like to see a bit more equity, a bit more variety that reflects these communities. No one can discount what a rainbow Orlando is.
One of the things I like that you address the most is that there can be equity in arts, right? Folks tend to think that the word equity is just to what we're doing politically, or how we're trying to shape how folks are just looking through a certain lens. But equity is in every single part of the community, whether it's in arts, whether it's in politics, whether it's just from food, right? There's a whole gamut of what equity actually means. And so what programs or initiatives does United Arts already have in motion to address diversity and inclusion in the arts and in Central Florida?
Well, we, like I mentioned before, we have something called the Diversity Grant, which is funded through Duke Energy. And that grant is usually geared more towards, our established organizations like Art Orlando. Actually, Art Orlando had a diversity grant that it was a great program. Unfortunately, COVID interrupted it. So, that's modern times.
Well, we did have one last year as well, where we did the Sarsuela in Osceola County Schools. So yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
So which is great. I think, and that gets looked at upon, by us quite, that you guys are taking advantage of these grant opportunities and connecting with these different communities, which is great. So we're still offering the diversity grant, which is great, and we've actually expanded it. Once upon a time, you can only get it every 2 years. And now that, and even before this was all happening, we saw that there was a need for diversity. We already recognized that this was an issue. So then we decided, okay, let's do it every year. Why are we going to make people wait another year, to apply for a grant like this again? So, we offered that. It's a modest, $5,000 grant, but it's something to help, make these programs happen. We're actually thinking about new grant programs to address this issue. issue. It's kind of like diversity grant, but really a real diversity grant, because I think a big issue is, I mean, I think it's great that we have all these organizations in town that work with communities of color, but what about Black-led communities of color, those who, indigenous, Latinx, where are these organizations? I want to see that. I'm like, I can't say anything about our current organizations. They do what they can, but I'm like, there's this huge rainbow here. Where are you guys? And I want to hear from you. And this is the lens I wear. I wore this even before this was a discussion, and I am so happy because that was a huge wall to go over. Like, okay, how do I bring this up and without shaking everything down, But it's a serious thing, and our board is looking at this seriously, and our executives. So I feel so supported. This is a fabulous time to be talking about these things and thinking about new initiatives to engage these folks. So back to that point is that we are not trying to have a colonial outlook in how to fund this, because we could very easily say, we're going to do a diversity grant, and this is how we're going to do it, and then here you go. But then no one applies, or we're not reaching anyone. So we want to make sure that this is something that we do right. And to get that, we have to talk with BIPOC folks.
Yeah.
I want to hear from these things. So these are going to be roundtables we're going to have very soon. It's going to be kind of similar to what the Orange County, wait, I have let me make sure I have the right word here. Orange County Arts and Art Advisory Councils, they have a new diversity and inclusion committee, which I'm actually a part of.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
there's going to
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's there's 17 folks on that committee. So and that's headed by Orange County. So there's going to be several kind of meetings and discussions. And in September, actually, there's 3 that are set up. They're called Brain Trusts. So if anyone wants more information about that, that's something separate from United Arts. We're partnering with Orange County to do these kind of talks with people of color and artists, people of color, to see best ways to how we can support these communities and come up with strategies. So not to duplicate services, we're going to do something similar, but a little different. So for our own programs, we want to have our own kind of roundtables, but I'm going to have, my lens on and saying, scan the room, who's here, who can I talk to have these discussions with. Also, I'm hopeful that, BIPOC folks out there looking at this would want to reach out and be like, I want to learn more about what you guys are doing, or I want to be a part of that discussion.
We have one of our committee members for Representation Matters, Mark Wright, actually serves on that committee with you as well. And so we're really excited to have a seat at that table also to help bring diversity within our arts and within our culture. Another thing that you said was BIPOC, and I want to unpack what that means for folks who are viewing. BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, People of Color. It is a group of marginalized folks that intentionally stands for community change and advocacy. A thing about BIPOC that some folks don't understand at times is that just because you may look like you are from a BIPOC doesn't mean you identify with that. So when we're saying BIPOC here, we're talking about folks who particularly and intentionally identify with Black, Indigenous, people of color. Another thing that I do want to also uplift, you said just a modest 5,000. Rafael, there is no such thing as a modest 5,000, especially in the time that we have, that we're living in right now. And also for smaller organizations, 5,000 is a whole year of programming for something that's super crucial and intentional. So the modest 5,000 that you said is actually doing so much in the community. And we want to thank United Arts for that.
Can I add one more thing, Chev?
Sure.
I forgot to mention that technically it's not diversity minded, but United Arts offers what we call the mini grant. And that's usually the grant that's geared towards grassroots organizations. It has no, really no color lens on it, but I would say that that's the grant that most grassroots organizations would apply to, and that's up to 2,500. So that's a grant opportunity for any small organization out there to apply. You just have to, have to have a 501c3, and have an arts program or something like that, and also been around for at least a year, but and show that you've had programs for the past year. But that's an entry opportunity to introduce yourself to United Arts and get some support, especially if you're doing if you're just starting out. So that's our kind of like our entry grant. And a lot of times those are from communities of color are applied to those grants. So I'm happy to kind of put that info out there, and make sure you go to our website and look at our grant opportunities.
When you're looking to the future, how do you think that the arts can help our community continue to come together and develop greater harmony and understanding around diversity and inclusion?
The arts has always been used as a vehicle, to pull communities together. It's how history remembers us in the end, so like, going back to the 60s, a lot of that, that rock and roll music, came out because people were protesting, wars and inequities there. So, there's it's the arts are important, and through it, all of its forms, through music, through storytelling, visual arts, it's an important way to get yourself heard in whatever medium that you're putting out there. You can show your anger and your frustration through dance, So I think these are all very important things to get out there, which is good for you as the creative person, but also for the community that you're speaking to. And then down the line, as I mentioned before, the history books remembers these things, and these are important lessons for those that come beyond that.
So what you're doing is you're setting up for what our future could be for our children, for our children's children, right? Thank you so much for your time today, Rafael. To send us off, why do you think representation matters in the arts and in our community?
Well, I mean, it's a very important thing to be reflective of the community that you're serving and performing in. When I was a kid, I didn't see very much representation out there in so many different ways. And I'm especially appreciative during this time period, we have something like Hamilton, where, showing this story and all of the performers reflective of the community they're speaking to. And I think that's a very important thing for the youth and beyond to see, because that's been another thing that in my mind is I want to hear more stories about people of color, BIPOC folks, and also, their our faces in it. From the Latinx, the Black to Indigenous, and everything, Asian, everything. Representation matters. That's how you connect with the community from being a kid moving up. Again, as a kid, wanting to have, folks, or maybe being the representation for folks out there. Like, I'll do what I can to push more, BIPOC kind of themes and issues and people out there. I don't need to stand in front. I could be part of the support in the back, which is I've been for years now. Is I'll lend my way, my strengths to lift these communities, my communities, and have their stories heard.
Rafael, I really appreciate your time. It does take a village, but it takes a way for all of us to stand united to do that. And we are so grateful for United Arts for doing so and standing by our communities.
Thank you. United Arts will be here. Well, happy to support. It's our job. And it's putting out there anyone who has questions or anything about better ways that we can serve the arts. Reach out to me. Hopefully, you'll put my email somewhere in there. But I'm happy to listen. As I said through the discussion, I'm listening and learning every day. So to do this job better.
Thank you, Rafael. We truly appreciate the support of our larger Orlando and Central Florida community. And I really value the time I was able to spend with Mayor Demings and Rafael Torres for this episode. Thanks for being here with us today for Representation Matters. Please join us for our next episode on Sunday, October 11th at 2 p.m. for the premiere episode of Latinx Artists, Latinx Stories, featuring Alejandra Ballerino Boyer, hosting a Spanish language interview with Jorge Parodi. Alejandra, originally from the Orlando area, now serves as the Director of Programs and Partnerships at Seattle Opera. And Jorge, originally from Buenos Aires, conducted Tales of Hoffman for Opera Orlando in 2018 and returns this season to conduct I want to share my personal feelings about this city I call home. For me, representation is about being able to truly live through an array of values through a diverse set of eyes, experiences, and stories. In fact, it's how we grow. It's important for folks within our communities to see their faces, their stories, and their lives on the stage and beyond. By doing this, we truly are actively seeking to build a better community through equitable values and setting the standards for a world that can be filled with love and understanding. I am Chevalier Lovett, and I am a Black and LGBTQ+ artist with Black and LGBTQ+ stories.